So this is the first official beginning of the first day of the Panihanti festival. And we're very fortunate that we have His Grace Srutakirti prabhu here. Srutakirti prabhu ki! So he had the blessing and also the spiritual strength to serve Srila Prabhupada like that for 3 years, every day. Next to that pure devotee traveling around the world. I used to think when I was younger, I said I wanted that service. Somehow I thought I could get it. It was just going to take some time. Then after reading this book, I wouldn't last 2 hours. I don't see how he did it for 3 years, isn't it? So he's here, and he spoke last night. He's going to speak to us, especially about Prabhupada as he was traveling, and he came with Prabhupada to Atlanta, and after Prabhupada left. Because as we know, this is the 50th anniversary of Sri Sri Donita. And Prabhupada was very moved in front of these things. So, also we have visiting, she's from Atlanta, but she just comes every now and then. I keep forgetting your name. Maha?
Sini.
Haribo. Time devotee from LA. How many of you know Kavi Chandra Swami? So she's Kavi Chandra Swami. They joined together actually, wasn't it?
Yes, we did.
Came together. And I don't know, someone of the Olympics. So she's famous for her cooking. She can cook for 1,000 people. Maybe one of these days we get her to cook feast for us. So, and of course we have Bala Bhajan, as we know, Bala Bhajan Keep. So without further ado, Prabhu.
Srutakirti Prabhu ki!
We just got giant ones.
Srila Prabhupada ki Iskcon BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories. Glories Shri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Makena Tamanandasya Gananjana Savakaya Chaksulamilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurudei Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svaya Rupa Tadamayam Tatati Svapatantikam Panchakopa Tirubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vihikacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone, and thank you for welcoming me here. I'm here actually by Sikhi Mahiti's arrangements. Saw him in Mayapur a few months ago, and I didn't know, but he told me it was 50th anniversary of the installation of Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. And we all know they're very, very special deities, very special deities. This is probably my, I think, fifth time here for Panihati Festival over the last 10 years or so. And my sixth time here, because I was here 49 years ago, back in the end of February, beginning of March, when Srila Prabhupada came in 1975. And he was here, I think it was just 3 days. 3 days. But they were very, very special 3 days. I can tell you, I was with Srila Prabhupada for 2.5 years. And somehow or other, within that 2.5 years, these 3 days here were very special. And I think many of you all know that. You've heard year after year, we come here, different devotees will tell you their experiences with Srila Prabhupada being here. And I've also done that, of course, in the past. And today, I was thinking, and it was confirmed by Sikhi Mahiti Prabhu, I was thinking, well, what led up to Srila Prabhupada coming here was also very special that time in 1975. And Prabhupada, he left India. He was in Juhu, Mumbai. He's in Mumbai now. He left there, and just in the beginning of the year, 1975, and he traveled around the world, bringing them back to Mayapur for Gaur Purnima. So 2 months, Prabhupada traveled around the world, all around the world in 2 months. And in those 2 months, he stopped in a dozen temples. So myself, just now coming, my wife and I, we just came here. We've been living in Vrindavan for the last 4 years. Actually, we had traveled in South Africa, Mauritius, Kenya. I wanted to go to the places Srila Prabhupada was at. I never got to travel with Srila Prabhupada in Africa. So it was one of the places I did want to go, because wherever Prabhupada went, he would definitely plant seeds of devotion. And we went there, and of course everywhere he went, everywhere he stopped, there's a temple. In South Africa, and of course we have temple in Johannesburg where he went, in Durban, a place called Santon. And then they brought him to one place. It was about an hour away from Durban. And he gave one class. He was there for a couple hours, and there's a temple there. This was the potency of pure devotee, the potency of Srila Prabhupada. Wherever he went, this is what's happened. I know when I joined, I moved into a temple in April 1971. And I was literally in Pittsburgh for about a week, and then I got taken to New Vrindavan. And I was, of course, new. Most all of us were new. If you had been in the temple for a year, you were an old devotee, being in the temple that long. I remember seeing someone chanting on a thread one day. You know, they were a Brahmin. And when I saw this, you know, they had, we all know, Hare Krishna mantra was there. But then there was a secret mantra. You know, Prabhupada always said there were people giving out secret mantras. We had a secret mantra. And I would see people chanting Gayatri mantra. And I would literally just watch them thinking they were going to like levitate or something, you know, it was so special. Prabhupada, he chanted his Gayatri mantra every day. Prabhupada was very, very regulated. We speak about, you know, when we go in the past and we talk about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and there's a lot of information because he recorded it. Now he had a very regulated schedule when he did his work for the government, when he did his translating work, when he did his book writing, when he chanted. And we don't hear that so much about Srila Prabhupada because he didn't spend time speaking about what he was doing other than translating his books, giving us Krishna. That was his business. That's why to this day we're the Hare Krishnas. Back in the 70s, right, we had so many, you had the Maharishi, and you had there was one from South Korea, what was he? Guru Maharaji, and this one and that one, and that's how you identified their movement. But with Prabhupada, we weren't called the Prabhupads, we were Hare Krishnas. In Vrindavan, to this day, like I say, in the last 4 years, Prabhupada would be on his morning walk, walking in that Chittakara road. It's very, very different now. So different, everything's so different. But it's still same Vrindavan. And in those days, still it happens.
Chittakar from Bombay? Chittakar from Bombay?
Yes. Yes. So we would walk. You couldn't even, from town, from Lori Bazaar, from town, you couldn't even get a rickshaw to come to Raman Reti, where the temple would be, because they knew once they took you there, you're not going to pick anyone up, because no one was there. So they had no ride, so they wouldn't even take you to this isolated place in Raman Reti. But on the morning walk, of course, Prabhupada and everybody would say, the rickshaw wallahs would say, everybody, Radhe, Radhe. And Prabhupada, Hare Krishna. Always Hare Krishna. Radha's also there, Hare. So his response was always Hare Krishna. This is what he gave us, Hare Krishna. I got off track, which I do a lot when I speak, but that's okay. So when he left Juhu, and it was very interesting. Prabhupada, everything was set up. He had his servant, he had his secretary, and of course Pradyumna, Prabhupada called Panditji. Sometimes he would call him Banditji. Bandit, like a bandit. You all know what bandit is here in America. We know. So sometimes Prabhupada, with his wonderful sense of humor, he had nicknames. Me, first day I was with him, he said, Srutakirti, your name's too long. From now on, he said, I'm going to call you Shruta. Yes, Prabhupada. One day he called me Shruta, never always was Srutakirti after that. But he did that, he said that. I'll call you Shruta, he said. So this trip, now this is 1975. So 10 years since Prabhupada came to America. And we know the struggles Prabhupada went to before he came to America. He didn't just sell books. He had to write the books, he had to get the books printed, he had to go to the printer, he had to get the money, and nothing was there. Everything was struggle. So now, 10 years later, it wasn't a struggle. So Prabhupada, he's going to all these different temples. He's seeing what happened. And just like as we get to when he came here, Prabhupada in ecstasy, every temple he went to, Prabhupada would go on the Vyasa-san, and he would exhibit ecstatic symptoms. And this is something we didn't see very often. Myself, I didn't see very often being with him. But it was happening. When he left Mumbai, the first stop was Japan. Japan, of course, was still very small, no temples, practically no local devotees. It said, Prabhupada said that the Japanese, they would take the longest. He said that they would be very good devotees. They would be the best when they came. So then from Japan, he flew to Hawaii. And there he stayed some days in Hawaii. He liked Hawaii very much. He said, Hawaii Temple, which of course, New Navadvip, they just had their 52nd anniversary. They were the very first Panchatattva deities outside of India, Panchatattva in Hawaii, which he called New Navadvip. So there's 7 islands, 9 islands, and very beautiful. Of course, everything there is nice. Prabhupada said he said he had 2 favorite places. Of course, Prabhupada said so many things. His favorite deities, but it was multiple. When he said something was favorite, it didn't mean anything else was not favorite. That could also be favorite. That's the spiritual, the transcendental way. So many places he would go and see the deities. He said they're the most beautiful. And devotees, they would be so proud, like he said that in London. Very place, most beautiful. So the devotees, of course, they would think Prabhupada saying that means other deities not most beautiful, but it didn't mean that. He could say that everywhere he went. Prabhupada, when he would say most, emphasized something. Most important. Like he said, book distribution was most important. When Satsarup Maharaj once wrote Prabhupada a letter, Prabhupada said, I should go on book distribution. You say it's most important. He said, yes, it's most important. Worshipping the deities, most important. Cooking in the kitchen, most important. Everything was most important. That's spiritual life. It's all most important. So he stayed in Japan just quickly in transit. Next day was going to Hawaii. I don't know if this keeps falling down. Like me, it just keeps falling down. Okay. So from Japan to Hawaii, Prabhupada had a little fun on the airplane. We always knew he would sit at the window seat. I don't know how many flights Prabhupada was on. He always was at the window seat. And as a servant, very often you were right next to him. You can't imagine having to sit next to your Srila Prabhupada, getting to sit next to Srila Prabhupada, sometimes 8 hours, 10 hours, trying to make believe you're Krishna conscious next to him, your hand in your bead bag. In those days, they would have the big TV in the front of the airplane, you know, in each part. You didn't have the screen right in the seat in front of you. You had a few screens in every section of the plane. And of course, you see it. Automatically, you see what's going on the screen. You know, Prabhupada, when he watched Yes, Charlie Chaplin. Prabhupada laughed and laughed and laughed. If you see Charlie Chaplin, you don't hear anything, but just watching what he would do. It was so funny. Then the devotee said to Prabhupada, look at this, isn't that Maya? Prabhupada said, no, you see Krishna's His ability to make people laugh, it comes from Krishna. Everything comes from Krishna. So I was on the plane with him once, and of course, and again, you would put in the earphones, but we didn't do that. But I'm sitting next to Prabhupada and he's on the plane, and it was a Western. It was a Western. In those times, in the 70s, Westerns were very popular on the movies, on the television. You know, we had John Wayne and all the big, big heroes, Western heroes. So this Western is going on the screen, and Prabhupada's sitting, and I'm sitting, and of course you're watching. And it's all in the West. Everybody has their guns in their holsters and everything, and you know. And sometimes you have the people that are dressed in black, you know, they have the black hat, cowboy hat, and black boots, and black everything, black vest. And so there was this man, and he was one of those men all dressed in black, with black cowboy hat on, but he had a book in his hand. He was holding against like his heart, you know, he had this book. And we're there, and Prabhupada's chanting, and he looks at me. He said, "What's that book?" I said, "I don't know, bro." I said, "Maybe it's a Bible." I said, "That's all I can think." He said, "Oh, okay." So on this plane ride from Japan to Hawaii, in the compartment in front, there was like a Time magazine, Newsweek magazine. There were big, big magazines back then. They were the two biggest weekly, I guess, monthly they came out. And on the very cover of the magazine, this Time magazine, it showed women's liberation. Also big, big topic back then, women's liberation, the women's liberation movement. And the photograph showed many women, like, what do you call it, you know, all in the crowd there out in the street. And there was literally like a bonfire. And they're all shouting and screaming. So this picture in the bonfire, they were burning their bras. They were freeing, becoming liberated. And Prabhupada looked, and he's at the window seat. Next to him at this time was another Grahasta devotee, Nitai, who's also became infamous in our society. He's sitting next to Prabhupada, and young stewardess, pretty flight attendants walking down the aisle. And as she's walking down, Prabhupada starts elbowing Nitai. He said, "Tell her, she wants to be liberated. Tell her, shave her head." And Nitai said, "Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna." And Prabhupada said, "Go ahead, cut a joke. Cut a joke," he said. "Tell her, shave her head, then she'll be liberated." Nitai couldn't do it. Prabhupada knew he wouldn't do it, but he made a joke with him. We know how Prabhupada handled situations with reporters, and he was always incredible, never defensive. Prabhupada, we say, you know, if you know, it's particularly basketball, football, you have the offense and you have defense. Prabhupada was offensive, never took a defensive position. When the reporter said, you know, you preach all this renunciation, and your followers, they give you a Rolls Royce. Prabhupada said, "Yes. So why Rolls Royce? You should give me a golden car." But he wouldn't let people, he didn't become concerned. All the reporters, the reporter, the camera person, everyone, they were all women. This was also at the same time, same years. Because they were showing whatever men can do, we can do. Actually, they can do more because they can have babies, men can't. Of course, nowadays, that's also changing. And the reporter said, and she's wearing her mini skirt, back in those days. And Why do you shave your head? And whenever anyone asked Prabhupada that question, he was finished. He said, these people, they have no intelligence to ask such useless question. Here he is. He can answer any question you're going to ask him. Any philosophical question about life, what to do, why to do it, why I'm here. And she goes, why do you shave your head? And we know Prabhupada's response. Why do you shave your legs? He said, keep a cool head and warm legs. So then he got to Hawaii, and there's Panchatattva. Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, a whole Panchatattva there. I said, Prabhupada, 2 places, favorite places, Hawaii and Juhu. Why? Why were they his favorite places? Not cheating, you know all the answers. My wife knows all the answers. Dobbs. Prabhupada liked Dobbs. I had one godbrother. His favorite story about Srila Prabhupada. In Juhu, Prabhupada at that time was on the 2nd floor flat. And he had his sitting room and he had a bedroom. And my room was what they call the hall, the living room. Just had my mat in the living room. Prabhupada's schedule, very regulated, every day. Massage, 11 o'clock massage, 1.5 hours. Sometimes 1 hour, 15 minutes, sometimes almost 2 hours. And while the massage is going on, the cooker somewhere steaming his vegetables, steaming the rice, cooking the dal. I say it was the most anxiety-filled time, 2 hours. I had 2 hours of anxiety, wondering what's going on with the cooker as I'm massaging Prabhupada. He showed me how to use the cooker for 3 days in Dallas, just across the road here, a little west of here, Dallas Temple. But all the time I'd be worried. Imagine cauliflower, potato, eggplant, whatever it is, being steamed for 1.5 hours. Somehow or other it didn't turn to mush. Because he showed me just how to put the flame. Prabhupada was expert with everything. He was expert with the flame. Saying he showed me how to cook. One night he came in. Prabhupada. He would also have meals in the evening. Lunchtime was always the same. Rice, chapatis, dal, whatever vegetables were available where we were. I would make some combination, chant some the way he showed me, a little bit of ghee. But in the evening, that was very wonderful. One evening he came in, do you know how to make paratha? I said, no, Prabhupada, I've never made. I'll show you. And then he said, make a chapati dough and call me when you're ready. So he went back into his room. I made a chapati dough. And then I went, I said, Prabhupada, dough's ready. Then he came back to the room. This was in Los Angeles, New Tuerca. My kitchen was my room, sitting on the floor with just a 2x10 piece of wood on 2 cinder blocks, a bucket of water, and a 2-burner gas stove that was connected to what used to be your heater, gas heater. That was the stove. So he came in, and of course we had the skillet, cast iron skillet, put it on, put the heat on. So he said, now roll chapati. He said, but use ghee instead of flour. Ghee on the surface, ghee on the top, and roll it into a circle. And he's just watching me. He's having me do it, but he's watching. So then after I rolled the chapati made with ghee, he said, now you fold it in half and put some more ghee on the top and roll it again. He said, now put more ghee And then of course you make it into quarters. So it looks like like that, like a triangle, rounded triangle. But ghee everywhere, ghee, 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 ghee. Oil, Prabhupada says, for the outside of the body. We always fight that, don't we? Oil for the outside, ghee for the inside. Most healthy thing you can take. If you want your joints to feel good when you're in your 70s, you have to put ghee inside the body, lubrication. That's our oil for the engine. So ghee, everywhere ghee. So then on the skillets, and put some ghee. And then we put it on there. Of course, he said, put ghee on the top. So put ghee on the top. And then flipped it over. It's on a medium flame. Flipped it over, put more ghee on the top. 30 seconds or so, flip it over again, more ghee on the top. We have paratha. So nice, flaky paratha. So simple. The ghee. Wonderful ghee. So, from Hawaii, next stop was Los Angeles. Another wonderful place, Los Angeles. Los Angeles was my favorite place, being with Srila Prabhupada. Everything was perfect, and so many devotees were eager to help Prabhupada's servant, doing the laundry, doing this, doing that. We arrived and go up the stairs to Prabhupada's room, and he would often look out the windows from the sitting room. And we get upstairs and he's looking out the window and he says to me, "So, Srutakirti Maharaj, how do you like it here in New Dwarka?" And I'd say, "Oh, very nice, Prabhupada." He knew I liked it. 2 months later, he would say the same thing when we arrived in Mayapur. "So, Srutakirti Maharaj." There were the only 2 times he called me Maharaj. From Sruto, I became Srutakirti Maharaj. I was a Grahasta. Oh, he had a sense of humor, Prabhupada. "How do you like it here in Mayapur?" He said, "Oh, it was very nice, Prabhupada." Prabhupada liked it in Mayapur very, very much. It was so beautiful. The breezes were wonderful going through his room. So then it got interesting on this trip. After spending about a week in Los Angeles, we went to the next place, Mexico City. He had been there once or twice before. This was my first trip there. So many very nice devotees, pious people, Mexican people, pious. It was the first place I saw people that weren't 20 years old. Actually, their mothers were becoming devotees. You had people 40 years old, 50 years old in Mexico City. Hridayananda Maharaj, she would translate Prabhupada's lectures. Prabhupada would speak a few sentences, Hridayananda would translate. And Prabhupada, of course, was stressing this lifetime meant for becoming Krishna conscious. Use this lifetime for becoming Krishna conscious, so that at the time of death you remember Krishna. Chant, like we chant, engage in service, read Prabhupada's books. We live in Vrindavan, and every week somebody's dying, coming to Vrindavan. It seems like God brother, God sister, they come there to die, just like Prabhupada went there when he was ready to leave his body. Every time Prabhupada was thinking his health wasn't good, he went to Vrindavan. So we have many devotees. The most recent one was Pankajanabha. He went there 3 years ago, and he thought he was going to be dying any time, in a week, 2 weeks, a month. Had what's it called, cystic fibrosis, I guess, very difficult breathing. 3 years he lasted, but he stayed there. He died, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. He was in the bathroom, his assistant was there. He was having trouble breathing. He said, "Krishna, Krishna, Krishna." Boom, gone. Such perfect, perfect dad. So in Mexico City, Prabhupada finished talking, and which didn't happen usually in the States, in the West. It was question and answers. And this woman, when I say woman, meant she was like 50 years old, an older woman. When you're 18, 19, 20, somebody's 40 years old, you think they're old. Right? When we grew up, that was our motto: don't trust anyone over 30. And then we surrendered to Prabhupada, who was over 70. Him we trusted. We could trust Prabhupada. So she said, Prabhupada, you say the time of death we should remember Krishna. And she said, what if we remember you? Prabhupada just smiled. He said, that's all right. Because all he did was give us Krishna. All he did, all he talked about, Krishna, 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 everything was Krishna. Then we had some really interesting thing. Prabhupada went from, Mexico City, one devotee came in. He had been a sannyasi. And between the two times Prabhupada was there, he went from being a sannyasi to being married and already had a son who he named Abai. But Prabhupada's in his room and he didn't see this devotee. So he said, where is he? Of course the devotee says, well, he's here, Prabhupada, but he's embarrassed to come into your room. Prabhupada said, call him. So now I'm also in the room. Like I say, I'm a grahasta now. Prabhupada's servant. So he calls him into the room, and Prabhupada, of course, greets him. Big smile, how are you? Okay, Prabhupada, by your mercy. And he said, Prabhupada, he said, can I still serve you? Can I do service? Prabhupada looked at him. He said, I'm not Lord Chaitanya. He said, Lord Chaitanya, he could make the animals dance and chant. He said, but I need all the help I can get. So yes. And then he said, now you're a grahasta like Srutakirti. He said that a few times. I don't know whether it was a compliment or what it was, but he said, now you're a grahasta like Srutakirti. And he's saying, because I'm traveling with him. Usually, Prabhupada, the people traveling with him were grahastas. Their wives were somewhere, usually in Los Angeles, in an apartment. Prabhupada didn't say you should go be with your wife. No, just the opposite. Traveling with him. So he said, you carry on, do your service. So then the next morning, Prabhupada's going to Caracas, Venezuela. It would be his first trip there. And one of the Matajis made one of Prabhupada's favorites, muri. You all know what muri is, puffed rice. Puffed rice, peanuts, and ghee. And she just put it in aluminum foil and it was in a paper bag. So now we're on the airplane. Prabhupada sitting at the window. I'm in the middle seat. Next to me is Paramahamsa Swami Maharaj. We're all shaved heads, dirty kurta, like that. So I'm between two sannyasis. It's very common for me my whole life. I find myself being around all these sannyasis somehow or other. So there were different signals with Prabhupada. When you were Prabhupada's servant, you had to really be attentive. If you're a devotee, you really have to be attentive as a devotee. Sometimes we're not, but to be a devotee, actually, you're always attentive. Always. That's being a devotee. You're attentive because Krishna's everywhere. Krishna is doing everything. He called me in the room, Vrindavan. He said, first class servant, he knows what to do without being asked. Second-class servant, you tell him what to do, and he does it. That's second class. Imagine, you have to be told what to do. That means you don't even know what you're doing. And third-class servant, he says, he doesn't do it or he does it begrudgingly. Again, Prabhupada's wonderful English he had, the way he would say things. And looking back, I never thought about it, but when he called me in, he was probably telling me I should know that I'm supposed to do something. Instead of just saying, why don't you do this? He explains to you what your business is. See, this is how he would do things. You had to really pay attention. In Vrindavan, I knew. He would call me in the room and go, that meant turn the fan on. And he didn't say turn on the fan, he would just look. He'd look at his French doors, meant open up the curtains. He would just look. Everything. He didn't open his mouth unnecessarily just to say something. You had to know what you were supposed to do. So in the airplane, you know, you have takeoff. So then what happens? In those times they had the no smoking signs as well. And we, of course, they had no smoking sections, which we were always in. But then what happens? You hear bing! The fasten your seatbelt sign goes off. So what does that mean? It means Prabhupada's going to take prasadam now. Because the fasten seatbelt sign is off, now you can put the tray table down. Prabhupada really enjoyed prasadam. You can say that. We see so many things, we have different devotees will say this, and Prabhupada said ideal diet is, you know, just some fruit and milk, but that's not what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada took prasadam. 3 times a day he had dairy. 3 times a day, every meal. Hot milk every night. Hot, very hot milk. So the light goes out. Time for prasadam. He didn't have to say, time for prasadam. I know we're ready. He just looks at you. What are you waiting for? I'm hungry. So I put his table down, open the bag, aluminum foil, open up the aluminum foil with puffed rice and peanuts, and I put it before Prabhupada. And Paramahamsa and I were just sitting next to him. We would just sit quietly. That's what you did. You couldn't talk unless you were going to talk some pastimes of Krishna or something. No small talk. Prabhupada never did small talk. And he didn't want to hear anyone else. He was a gossip. Didn't say prajalpa, he would say gossip. There's all this gossip, he said, destroys your Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada, we know how nicely. And of course, he didn't say, Sarira Vijajal, the Jandriyatai. No. Just started taking prasadam. Throw it in his mouth. You know, he didn't put his fingers in his mouth. You just push it in there, magically. Some things Prabhupada did we thought was magic when we first saw it. When we saw how he drank water without the cup touching his lips, to us that was like, wow, who does that? Everyone does that in India, but for us it was mystical. Prabhupada told them early on how in India he would sit in the back seat of the car, and the devotees were thinking, mystic powers, he's sitting in the back seat and the car is moving. They didn't think he had a driver. So he eats half of it. Why did he eat half of it? Because he has 2 servants next to him who he has to see. They also have to take prasadam. He could have eaten all of it, but he's conscious. He's thoughtful. Always thinking of everyone else. So he ate half, and then he looked at me and said, now you can take. Very simple. So now I move it over to my tray, I close his tray, and I put it in 2 pieces, rip the aluminum foil down the middle, half to Paramahamsa, half to me. And now we're eating Prabhupada's Maha Maha Prasadam. Yes, I was very fortunate. I had so much Mahaprasadam from Prabhupada. So now we're eating, and this flight attendant, a young lady, she's walking down the aisle. And of course, we say we stuck out like a sore thumb. We're everybody, and this is Caracas, Venezuela. Nobody knows who Hare Krishnas are. They've never seen such things. Shaved heads, there's paint on our foreheads, funny clothes, very colorful. So she was walking down and she stops right in front of Paramahamsa. And she gets her hand and she reaches past Paramahamsa, puts her hand in my plate of puffed rice and takes it and puts it in her mouth. Incredible. The most amazing thing. Paramahamsa, he's still eating. He don't care. We're devotees. Prasadam, nothing. You're having prasadam, hurricanes can be going on. You're going to eat your prasadam. You've been waiting for 4 hours since your last meal. We're very hungry. And Prabhupada, he's just sitting there. He never pays any attention. He was in his own world, literally. The most fun being with Prabhupada was when he was outside of the temple. In the temple, we always knew, but when he was outside, you never knew what was going to happen. That same light, when the plane's landing, boom, fasten your seatbelt light goes on. So what does that mean? It means Prabhupada's going to go use the bathroom because the plane's going to land soon. Stewardess says, sit down, sit down. Prabhupada, like he doesn't even understand English. Just walking, and I have to follow him. And she's saying, sit down, sit down. And I'm like, sorry, I gotta follow this person. He went into the bathroom, and I'm outside the door standing there. And then he opens the door, big smile on his face. He said, when you're old, you can do anything you want. Then we went and sat down. So the woman, she eats the puffed rice, and she looks at me. She said, this is very good. She said, what is it? Oh, it's puffed rice. She said, well, why are you, I said, well, we're vegetarian, we have special diet. It was all brand new to her. And she goes, she said, can I get you anything else? Would you like anything else? No one else is getting anything. So I look at Prabhupada, hot milk. So I said, we'll all have hot milk, because whatever he does, we do. At least when it comes to prasadam, we weren't getting up at midnight, but when it came to prasadam with Prabhupada, we're having it. So she said, okay. She said, would you like anything else? She said, I can go into first class. And I look at Prabhupada, because he doesn't talk to her. I'm the translator from the spiritual to the material. I'm in between. I'm on the tushta there, like right in between. Prabhupada says fruit. I said, well, we'll have fruit because we're going to, whatever Prabhupada does, we're going to do. I said, okay. She said, I have bread, cheese, and covers. Okay. So she goes, she comes back with the cart. While she's gone, I said, Prabhupada, I said, that was amazing. The fact that you took is Mahaprasadam. We would kill each other to get the Prabhupada's plate. After he ate, I'd be holding the plate. Devotees would do anything to get there, get his Maha. And she grabbed it. Super soul. And when I said it was amazing, Prabhupada said, he said, women like to serve. He didn't acknowledge her taking his Mahaprasadam. He just acknowledged that she wanted to do something, wanted to bring us milk, bring us food. So he ignored the fact that she grabbed Prabhupada's puffed rice from my plate, which was also peculiar because I was in the middle. I wasn't in the aisle seat, so who knows? I don't even understand. So then she came back with everything, and we set it up. I do everything because I'm the servant. Put the milk, Prabhupada, myself, Paramahamsa, the fruit, cheese, bread. So then you just watch. As soon as Prabhupada puts something to his lips, it's prasadam. So as soon, we don't do it first, we have to wait. Then he puts it, then we start eating along with him. So that was one of the most amazing things ever happened in an airplane. I would tell that story sometimes, a long time now, almost 49 years now, 49 years ago. I was telling it in New Dwarka 25 years ago. And at the end of class, a devotee comes up to me, a South American devotee. He said, "Can I tell you a story?" And I'm like, okay. I just spoke for 2 hours, so I was ready to get up, and I said, "Yes, Prabhu." He said, "Well, you know, I've been distributing books for a long time." He said, "When we go down in South America, Brazil, all these things, and they're not big cities, they would go in jeeps," he said. They would go to the villages, go to the town centers. You know, usually there's fountains there and things, European style. And they would have to chanting Harinam. He said, then we get back into the jeeps and we go from one house to the next, which means that they might be a few minutes apart, maybe 5 minutes apart, whatever. Knock on the door and try to sell Prabhupada's books. Yes, Prabhu. He said, so we're there. I don't remember where it was. Maybe it was Brazil or something. He said, I went to this one door and I knock on the door and a woman answers. And she says, Hare Krishna. And she invites him into the house. And just picture of Prabhupada, the deities, and he's like, and this is in the middle of nowhere. And he said, you're a devotee. She said, yes. He said, well, how did you become a devotee? She said, well, I was a flight attendant. It was the woman who ate Prabhupada's Mahaprasadam. That's the power of the pure devotee. We say 1/11 of a second, just to get the glance, the smiling glance of the pure devotee, change your life. So that changed her life, one little handful. Prabhupada's puffed rice, Prabhupada's mudi. So amazing. And then we arrive at Caracas, and there's Gurnitai on the altar, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Prabhupada sitting in the Vyasasana. When he sat in the Vyasasana, I had been in Caracas. I lived there for 6 months. I was with Prabhupada for 16 months, and then I left him on my own, got married, and somehow or other I wound up in Caracas, Venezuela. Chiksukananda offered me to come to Caracas, he said. So I was the Brahmin in the temple. So I got to know all the devotees. Havidas was there at the time, and Virabahu. They were all bhaktas. So now, it was a year later, and I'm coming to the temple as Prabhupada's servant. They knew I had been Prabhupada's servant, but I was very happy to come there again, Prabhupada's servant. A little bit of pride, maybe a lot of pride, too much pride. Any pride is too much pride. So Prabhupada's getting on the Vyasasana, and for me, that's a busy time. You have to do different things, take his cane, get his book, get his glasses, see if he needs anything. But I'm looking at the devotees, Javi, and Virabalu, Karta, and I kind of like, here I am, back where I should be. And all of a sudden, something hits my head. And I look, Prabhupada had to take his socks off, because I wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing my service. He took his socks off, rolled it into a ball, and threw them at me. Let me know who you are. That's what he would say, who you are. Such big devotee, who you think you are. So that's how he did it. Didn't have to say anything, just threw softball at my head. Prabhupada's socks. That was also blessing. We want blessings. We should bring those blessings, Vishaka. Prabhupada's socks, yeah. I have Prabhupada's slippers. I travel with them. They were from the trip, Japan Airlines. Back in those days, everybody got slippers. So for the flight, I put them on Prabhupada's feet and then took them off, and somehow or other, one of the few things I managed to keep that Prabhupada gave me, or I managed to get from Srila Prabhupada. So then he started speaking, and he said, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, they've traveled very far to be with you. So personal. Persons. Actually, we know Prabhupada traveled so far to bring Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda to you. And Prabhupada spoke for a few minutes, but then he just stopped. Tears are coming out of his eyes. As we're going from place to place, I don't know Prabhupada's internal feelings, but what it felt like was he was seeing what he had accomplished. Everywhere he went now, packed temple rooms, people chanting, dancing, everywhere he went. After so much struggle, so much work he had done, and he accomplished spreading Krishna consciousness all around the world. He did it. He fulfilled the predictions of Lord Chaitanya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying when they hear Mayapur, the Germans, the French, the Russians, Prabhupada mentioned, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentioned all these different countries, all these different languages. And he did it. And he was in ecstasy, seeing Lord Chaitanya. He stayed in Caracas for a week, initiated devotees, Vaishnavas. Then from Caracas, he went to Miami. Miami. Prabhupada called it Miami. And that was also very, same thing. Prabhupada sat in the Vyasasana. There's Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. And Prabhupada says, they're very, very merciful. He said to come here. He said, maybe someday, he said, you can have Radha Krishna. He said, but that's, he said, you have to be very, very careful not to make offense. He said, Lord Chaitanya is so merciful. Even you make some offense accidentally, they don't mind. Lord Chaitanya doesn't mind, he's so kind. He said, but already, he said, Lord Chaitanya, Radha Krishna is here. And then again, he started crying. So I have been with Prabhupada now for some months, and my fear was always India. So I was always sick in India. And that was fast. I was always sick in India, so I tried to make arrangements. I wanted Nanda Kumar to come be his servant in India. He liked India. So when we arrived in Miami, and now I have a wife and a child in Hawaii. I've never even seen this child. I'm traveling with Prabhupada. So I'm a little bit confused, like Arjuna. I was confused about my duty. What are my duties? What should I do? What are my attachments? So we stayed in what was the temple president's cottage at the time. That was Abhirama, was temple president. So the cottage became Prabhupada's home for those couple of days. So Prabhupada arrives at the temple in Miami, and I have his white bag and his suitcase, just one little suitcase, and we go into the cottage. And as soon as we go in, there's like a hallway, and on the wall, there's a painting, Krishna and Arjuna in the chariot. And Prabhupada stopped, and he's looking at the painting. He said, I like this painting very much. And he says, I took the bait. And usually I'd be very quiet, because when Prabhupada says something, there's a lot in that statement. And of course I said, why is that, Srila Prabhupada? And he looked at me, his Grahasta servant. He looked at me. He said, just see. He said, Arjun, and it's like this, hand on his head. He said, Arjun is in anxiety. Why? He said, because Krishna is telling him, you have to kill your relatives and your friends. Then he looked at me, he said, what to speak of leaving your family? If Krishna wants, you have to kill your family. It went right over my head. Right over my head. It wasn't until decades later when I was writing my book that I realized Prabhupada was telling me, your job is to be with me. You're my servant. Don't worry about it. Krishna will take care of everything. See, that was his mood, his understanding, his knowledge, his realization. Krishna's taking care of everything. Just do your service. I told that story in Ukraine, and what's his name, Swami? Niranjan Swami said to me, explain to them they're not supposed to kill their family members. He said they could take you very seriously here. I said, oh, okay. But he kept saying it. If Krishna wants you, you have to kill your family members. Our business is to serve Krishna. That's our main business. And our other business is to get our other family members to also serve Krishna. So he said that because he knew I was not fixed in staying with him. Anyway, then where did he go next? Right here. Srila Prabhupada came right here to this place, Atlanta. And he came and he sat down in the Vyasa-san. And he saw the room was packed. The devotees are looking in the windows there, and the doorways, and everybody's in the temple room. Prabhupada's here. Oh, Radha Damodar party was here. Everyone was here. And Prabhupada's seeing everyone chanting again, everyone chanting and dancing everywhere in the world. And he was so happy that Krishna consciousness was all around the world. Now it was halfway around. And then he said, we've been traveling. He said, we went to Los Angeles, he said, Mexico City, Caracas. And then he looked at me, I said, Miami. He said, Miami. He said, and now we're here. What did he say next? I see your temple is the best. And everyone went, Haribo! Everyone was so happy because it was a beautiful temple. And then he started speaking, giving his arrival address. I could play it if I had. Sometimes I would play that. Most amazing. And that's what was amazing, Prabhupada coming here. Because he talked for 2 minutes. And the first words out of his mouth, Parama Karuna, Pahudvijana. He said, the 2 Lords, they're so kind. He said they're giving love of Godhead freely to everyone. He said Krishna is also kind, but he demands you surrender. He said, but Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, he said, they're giving everyone without exception. And as he's talking, each word was more difficult to say. As again, he's going into ecstasy, sitting on the Vyasa-san. And then he just stopped. It was his shortest ever lecture. Certainly one of the most powerful lectures he had given in all those years. And he just stopped, tears coming out of his eyes, and he would close his eyes, and we all just sat there. And you couldn't hear a person breathing. Because when you saw Prabhupada in ecstasy, everyone was in ecstasy, just like Lord Chaitanya. That's what he said, opening up storehouse, the love of God. So Prabhupada opened it up to all of us. No matter who we were, for those few moments, you would feel some ecstasy just looking at Prabhupada. And then, as he did so many times in that trip, he opened his eyes, chant Hare Krishna. That was it, we chanted Hare Krishna. I see it's already after 8 o'clock. So, and then he said, was it that day? Then he said, you know how to chant? Parama Karuna. And of course everybody said, yes, Prabhupada. Nobody knew anything. And Prabhupada grabbed the mridanga and was all funky because it was humid out, and a boom, boom. And Prabhupada started playing with the mridanga, moving it and tapping. And he brought up the pitch of the mridanga. And of course, it was 1, 2. Nobody knew how to do that. Still, you know, anyone chants that bhajan in that way, that melody, they get so confused. And then Prabhupada said, you practice. He said, and we'll do it again. So that was that day. And then Prabhupada, of course, he stayed right there next door. He had the whole upstairs, his sitting room, his bedroom, bathroom, probably kitchen area, I really don't remember. It was an ecstasy. So in there, and we know I gave Prabhupada massage just before lunch. That was main massage. But he also got massage in the evening time in his bedroom. The lights wouldn't be on. It was the most intimate time of the day. For me, it was the favorite time of the day. No one ever walked into Prabhupada's room. So you're alone with him. So that felt very special. And I'm massaging him. It's what I do every day. So for me, it's what I did all the time. And I'm massaging his legs, and then I go down to his feet, and I go back to his legs. Prabhupada said, like chapati dough. That's what he told me. You massage like chapati dough. Liked it. Forceful. So as I'm massaging, he's looking at the painting. Another painting he's looking at. Prabhupada would look at paintings. He would see everything. Everything. And this painting was Krishna and Balaram, young boys. Lots of calves in Vrindavan. And it was the second time. First time was May 1972. First words out of his mouth. Now again, as I'm massaging him, he's looking at the painting and he says, I like the cowherd boys very much. And then my antennas went up. When in the evening, if Prabhupada started speaking, you knew it was going to be very wonderful, very ecstatic, usually very personal. And then he started describing the pastime that he was looking at. And he said every day, Krishna Balaram, of course, after they had breakfast, they would go into the forest. He said they herded the calves. He said they were young boys. They weren't herding the cows. Very descriptive, probably. He said they were herding the calves. And they would go with all their cowherd boyfriends. He said, and of course, before they go, when they're going into the forest all day, what do you need? Prasadam. He said, so their mothers all would make their tiffins. He said, and of course, Krishna, his tiffin, kachori, doglu, like that. He said, and the cowherd boys, theirs was not so opulent, like Krishna's. Would have rice, chapatis. He said then they would play. He said then they would grab Krishna's tiffin, play keep away. They would keep away. He said the cowboy took Krishna's tiffin, and then Krishna would have one of their tiffins. And then he stopped. And then he said, I just want to go back to the spiritual world and eat kachori and laglu with Krishna. And then he closed his eyes. And I guess he went back there to eat his kachori and laglu. So this was Atlanta. Huh? You live in a very special place here. Very special place. Every place special. I was just reading today, Prabhupada said, when I go to LA, I'm in Vaikuntha. I go to Detroit, I'm in Vaikuntha. Everywhere he goes, he was in Vaikuntha. But even in Vaikuntha, there's different levels. So this place, your deities here, 50th anniversary, very, very wonderful. Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, very powerful, very potent deities. I can tell you. Very, very, they brought me here somehow or other again and again. I'm very happy to be able to come this time. So after he left here, well then there's so many other things happened here. I don't know, were we having another class?
Yeah, we have 2-3 more days.
Okay, so we can continue.
Yeah.
Continue. But we can, up to this point, anyone has any question or comment? And over the next day or two, we'll go from more stories in here in Atlanta. Some very funny ones, very amazing ones. Prabhupada again showing all his mystic powers. And anyone have any questions?
There's a legend that some brothers or some call for service. Prabhupada's checking his baggage. His socks are not. This is the story that we've all heard from here. That his socks are not. So the story goes that the volunteers took his socks, put it in some water, and made the tea and drank it. That's the legend.
I wouldn't doubt it. There's another legend that someone took Prabhupada's lota from under his desk and drank that. So I never did that. My first Mahaprasada was orange peels from Prabhupada's plate. They were very bitter, but they were from Prabhupada's plate. Yeah, I've told that, and many other devotees, that was their Mahaprasada, was Prabhupada's orange peels, because that may be all that's left on the plate. What you doing there, Steve?
Yeah, I got a microphone.
Oh, okay.
He's doing something,
I
right?
can tell. I also have some pastime that happened right here in Atlanta, but maybe we'll save that. I'll ask. We should tell her. No. She's telling me I can't tell that. We'll save that to make sure you come to the next class. We can't sell everything. We're going to save some to bring you back. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Anant Koti Dandavat Pranam. We don't have a question. Please, 5 minutes more, 1 past time. With permission of Vaishnava. Or Srila Prabhupada disciple.
Give me some more nectar, why not? All right, we'll do that then, since everyone seems quiet with no questions or anything. So the socks. When we came here, the end of February, beginning of March, it was unusually cold, or maybe it was usually cold, I don't know.
February, cold, yeah.
But coming from India, just in the course of a couple of weeks, I had a chadar. I didn't have socks, I didn't have shoes, I had Indian chappals. So we're on the morning walk, and I'm literally like freezing on the morning walk with Prabhupada. And Prabhupada has his chadar, his socks, his shoes. And so then we get back to the temple. Prabhupada goes up to his room, and he rings the bell. So I walk in, I offer a obeisance. He looks at me. He said, "Do you have any socks?" I said, no, Prabhupada. He said, well, go into my Almira. He said, take some socks. I said, Prabhupada, I can't use your socks. He said, if I say you can do it, you can do it. And I was with Prabhupada long enough. If he offered me something, I grabbed it with both hands. And that's actually a duty. Whatever the spiritual master offers you, you have one duty: take it. Because he's offering it to you. He's reciprocating. This is what devotees were supposed to do. And Prabhupada did it. And he said, do you have shoes? And then I'm like, Prabhupada. I said, no. I said, but I can't wear your shoes. He had just been given a new pair of shoes. And I said, and he said the same thing. He said, if I say you can do it, you can do it. He said, so take my shoes. So now I'm holding Prabhupada's socks and his shoes in my hand. And he said, how about the others? Do they need socks? And I said, well, probably, Prabhupada. He said, well, take some more socks. The others meant Nitai and Paramahamsa. We were all traveling together. He said, take some socks. I said, yes, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhupada. And then he looked at me. He said, when the spiritual master gives you something, he said, in his presence, you can use it. He said, but once he's gone, it becomes worshipable. I said, yes, Prabhupada. And I always remember that, because sometimes I would see someone wearing and they say, this was Prabhupada's. And I'm like, you're not supposed to wear it. It should be on the altar, on your altar somewhere. This is worshipable. Even as a Catholic boy, I knew that. We had relics. First class, second class, third class relics. I remember as a kid, you know. So these were Prabhupada's items. So now I have shoes, I have multiple pairs of socks, and I'm like, I'm in ecstasy. Prabhupada, imagine, he took his socks. So then I go into the servants' quarters where Paramahamsa and Nitai are there. And I knew, like Prabhupada, I also, you know, by his association, I knew I'm going to make a little joke with these, my godbrothers. Because that's what we did when we were with Prabhupada. That's how we broke the tension, was by just picking on one another. That's what guys do. So I went in and I said, look what Prabhupada gave me to wear. He gave me his socks, he gave me his shoes, and they looked at me. You can't use them. You can't wear Prabhupada's socks, you can't wear Prabhupada's shoes. And I'm like, oh, okay, because he gave me socks for you too. And they're like, okay. How quickly they changed once they knew they also, the sour grapes went away. So this was our life. But this is how Prabhupada took care of us. And it's why we were just so happy to take care of him, to do whatever little bit we could do. Because he showed he cared, he was so personal, he was so loving. He was so appreciative of whatever little service we did. As he was traveling around the world, spending a couple days here, a couple days here. We're here for 5 days. By the 5th day, I'll probably start to feel like a human being again after traveling 24 hours in a plane, multiple airports, riding from Vrindavan to Delhi, 4 hours in the car. It's exhausting. Prabhupada never complained. Never said, oh, that was a long trip. Never happened. So that's also sock. Yeah.
Maybe that's where it came from.
Maybe. I think that's probably, but no, we didn't make soup. We didn't make soup. All right. So we'll continue this as the days go on. Tomorrow's a very big day.
The Abhishek, well, we have Adivas beginning at 5:15, and afterwards Abhishek close to 6. And we'll have Balabhadra will speak about some more of the history of the deities and things. I think Janadivas will be here tomorrow.
Right.
And who else? Is it Panchagoda?
Panchagoda.
Yeah, Panchagoda. So we have senior devotee, so it'll be very nice, so you should come. This is, I don't, the next 50 years, I don't think any of us will be here. Maybe the little boy. I certainly won't be here. So come take advantage of it. Everyone can participate in the Abhishek. We're bringing the deities down to here. So it's getting a little dark. We have prasadam in the back. Let's give a nice round of applause. He forgot to bring his books.
I forgot to bring my books.
He has, how many you have left? Not very many. You better get
Enough.
You have enough? So you please get some books. And if you can, give some little donation. He may not be sannyasi, but he's living like that, traveling. And this way he can continue spreading these glories of Srila Prabhupada in this very intimate way, isn't it? And also catch that mood of Prabhupada. Because it seems like sometimes Krishna consciousness is like, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. Yes, yes, Krishna conscious. No, it's more than that. It's deeper than that. So, thank you again for coming. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.